Grand Rising, everyone. We made it to the end of the week. Welcome to the Day with Trey. I'm your host, Trey Holiday. I want to welcome you to a Feel Good Friday, y'all. You know, the thespian in me jumps for joy when I have theater folks in the building. So I'm excited because we're going to be talking about some theater things later on in the show. And you know what? I just want to thank all of you. And so I'm going to do a great wrap up for all of y'all today. Because honestly, you know, when we get to Friday, we want to feel good. We want to get ourselves prepared for the weekend. So that's always a must right here on the Day with Trey. So we're going to try to make sure we give you some of that today too. But of course, it is the top of the show, y'all. It's the best time to tag and share. You get to participate with us. You're helping us grow. Go ahead and tag and share the stream with folks who you feel could benefit from a daily dose of dopeness right here on the Day with Trey. And if you can't watch our show, we still have you covered because you know what? You can listen to our show anywhere you find your favorite podcast. Just search Converge Media Network and the Day with Trey. You'll find me on whichever platform is your favorite, y'all. Well, I'm excited. I get to get into some theater things. We got Brodrick Ryans in the building from the Underground Theater, or TUT as they call themselves. What's up, Brodrick?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I can't complain. I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I got to talk to Chris Black earlier this week.
Yeah.
We were talking about brown bodies on a blue earth.
Yep.
And this is the first time this show is hitting the main stage. But I want to, before I get into that show, I always got to ask people, like, what is your background? What got you to say, I need to be in theater?
That's a that's a big question. I would say I've always been acting my entire life. Saturdays in my house growing up with my parents were always kind of a let's like have fun and vibe day. But ultimately, my older brother in high school, I was a freshman, he was a senior, and he was like, hey, you should take this class with me and my friends. I think it was his way of protecting me. And it was a theater class. And the teacher asked me if I wanted to be in Grease that year as a musical. And then from there, it just stuck.
So you continued on, and it's really interesting because when you start in front of the stage, you often sometimes find yourself behind the stage.
Yeah.
Tell us about that transition for you.
Yeah, so currently in my 9-to-5 job, I work as the casting associate and artistic liaison for the Fifth Avenue Theater here in downtown Seattle. And I've always kind of had this creative vision to direct or do casting, whatever situation is. And so when Rye and Lynette reached out to me about directing this piece, I was like, you know what? Yes, I got time. Like, let's make it happen. And it just so happens that it's Black and sci-fi and kind of futuristic. So it's definitely my vibe.
Well, it was interesting as he was explaining the story. I mean, I just feel like this is a story that's such a sign of the times. I use the term zeitgeist a lot here because I think a lot of what we're seeing in terms of works of art are always that, right? They're telling of where we are like right now.
Yeah.
But this is really interesting because we have two different perspectives happening on stage at the same time.
Yeah.
How are you able to bring the characterization out from two different perspectives going on when, you know, it's like the end of the world, basically? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so there's this character called DJ Flow Sister who, when I originally read the script and had a conversation with Chris myself, I said to him, I feel like Flow is the Bible to me. The way that you wrote this character in my personal life, I feel like God, the universe, whomever it is, has always shown up as Black women to me. So when I read DJ Flow, I was like, oh, this is very much that vibe. It's that like, hey, I can be a cool lump, but also don't cross me in the wrong way kind of vibe. So there's that perspective that's happening. And Flo is this character who, when you're looking for the things that you need, Flo is the one who has them. And so at the other perspective of it are these characters who are just like, we're just trying to make it day by day. And they get to a point where they're like, we don't know if there actually is another day. And so the space actually helps a lot with perspective because they're in two different spaces the entire time. And it's almost like a runway. So the audience is getting to watch both perspectives happening at the same time and always wondering whether they're going to connect. And I'll just leave that up to seeing the show, whether you actually know if they connect or not. So.
Well, this for me is one of those things where I mean, I feel like we've been having a lot of shows that have been like, how do we bring new age stories to main stage?
Yeah.
And I am living for it. Like, I love this idea of let's bring like a new age way of doing something to the stage. I also think it's, as I was telling Chris, like there's something around characterization for me that it sounds like that's the heart of this story, right? I mean, it's like you just said, it's the characters.
It's all about the characters, and he leaves a lot up to the actors to decide what you want to bring into that piece. Post-pandemic, we've seen a lot of what I call fluff musicals or fluff plays, where people are just like, I just want to feel good. I want to feel happy. And it's like, I get it. Like, that's real. But for this, I love that he actually wrote this during the pandemic, because it's almost a little bit of the experience of the Black experience through the pandemic, of knowing that, like, we saw what was happening. We were living it day by day. You can turn the news on and off. I can't turn my life on and off. So I'm living that experience every day. And so that is also bathed into this script. There's a specific monologue that Simeon gives where he talks about, they just packed up and left. Like, all the rich white people got on a spaceship and they packed up and they left us. And he's like, why don't they care about us? And for me, I was like, that was a question the entire time I was directing. I kept asking, like, why do people not care about us? And what is it that we have to say and portray in this play to make people get that and understand that, like, we are humans too. We are living and trying to thrive just like everyone else is. And so it's just like, it's bittersweet, right? Because there's a part of it where you're like, yes, that thing for us as Black humans. And then there's a part of it where you're just like, but also, like, the reality of the situation is that this is what we're dealing with. This is what we're living in. And this is what we have. And so seeing those characters in that desperation and in those moments of, like, we want more, but we don't know how to actively get more, is just really hard. But also the actors that are playing those parts are, like, holding down the fort. They're doing the thing.
Well, you know, that's really the key, right? Because you can have a really great character and you can have it flop completely if the person doesn't understand so much of the nuance. But that's also, I think, the work of you as director, right? To bring it out. And there's so much that can be done with things that are not written in the script, right? I mean, especially with live theater, you have all of the emotion that comes through in body, in movement, in the eyes, in the stage management, right? And how they're moving about the stage. There's a lot that can be done there. How were you able to utilize kind of some of those spatial elements to also draw this story home?
Yeah, so the space works for us as an advantage and a disadvantage. One of them, the advantage being that, like, you can put people in two different worlds and allow them to, like, fully live. The disadvantage is that we're not in a traditional theater setting. So there's no, like, backstage. Getting characters on and off stage was kind of like, how do we make this work? One of those being is the first entrance of characters, they kind of just enter right through the house. And they're in space, in time, living as those characters as they enter through the house. The opening night, I watched some audience members be like, oh, like, we're in this. Like, we're in it. And I'm like, yes, you're very much as a part of the show as the actors are. And so in that, right, that was a little bit tough and difficult. The actors are managing that and they're working that. But what I do love about it in those conversations with Chris, part of that management is, I'd say, we've kind of hit a stumbling block. I kind of have an idea of what I think might happen with this character. The actors have an idea of what they think might, but there's nothing in the script right now to tell us the exact definition of that thing. And so we just email Chris and be like, hey, like, what's your thoughts? What do you think about this? And he would give a little bit more insight, and that would kind of help to fluff out and form the story. But yeah, there were some challenging, some difficult points in directing the piece and knowing that it is up for interpretation. The actors that are in this show, some of them, it's their first time. They've never acted in this capacity. And so I had to take all of my theater knowledge and terms and be like, let's throw this out the window, break this down in layman terms and speak to these people just how I speak to anybody day to day if I'm talking about theater.
Well, that's really intriguing, but I gotta say that I'm seeing almost a trend of, like, this collaborative environment when it comes to bringing plays to the stage and really allowing the actors to be a part of the entire character, like the embodiment of the character, which didn't exist, honestly, when I was in theater. Like, it just didn't exist. That seems like an anomaly.
You're gonna do what you're told.
Yeah, like, this is the role, this is the movement, right? And
don't change it from what is done.
Yeah, I mean, if you're used to that traditional theater, tell us about how the collaborative environment kind of allows for the story to have a different layer.
Yeah, like, my honest answer to that is that post-pandemic, we're not making theater the same way that we were before. Sure, some of the steps are the same, blocking, all of that stuff, the language around that is the same, but really the way that we're handling and dealing with people, the way that we talk to people is completely different. Good theater should always be a collaborative effort. As an actor, you should always be allowed to make a choice and to do that thing first. If your director's not allowing you to do that, in my personal opinion, I don't think that they're actually directing, they're just being a dictator. But yeah, so that's part of it, is that I'm like, great, I can give you a given circumstance, but I need you to figure out like what are the choices that you're making as this character to get through this circumstance, and allowing you to do so without jumping in and stopping you. And I agree. I've been in those settings before, pre-pandemic, where we'd be like, okay, so I'm just a body. I'm doing exactly what you need me to do. But with new works, it's always really great because there is nothing laid out for these people. They just get to make it up themselves, and so that's literally what they're just doing right now.
Yeah, and I'm seeing it too, and I think that it also provides an additional pathway to tell older stories or like known stories in a new way too, right?
Yes.
Like where, you know, yeah, we can take this different spin on it. Yeah, we can add these elements, and it doesn't take away from the story, but it adds to it.
Yeah.
So I'm really intrigued by this, and I can't wait to come. You got to make sure I get there.
Listen, you got to come and check it out. And I agree with you. I think that is definitely a thing. I know that you interviewed Portia Shaw when she was playing Belle in Beauty and the Beast, and to me, I love just honestly, just putting a Black human in that role immediately changes the story, right? Because our given circumstances are completely different than what's written. But actually, pre-pandemic, Denver Center of Performing Arts was doing an all-Black version of Oklahoma.
Wow.
And I had previously worked with the person who was choreographing that show, Dominique Kelly. And so I went back and like looked up clips, and I was like, this is insane that it's the exact same story, but the circumstances can completely change when you put people of color into those positions and allow us to tell a story in the way that we want to tell a story. And so you're seeing a lot of that where people are going back and doing traditional things. We're looking at The Wiz right now that's on Broadway. It's the same story that it's been, but when you allow people to add more creativity and new direction behind that, it can completely change a classic that you love.
Yeah. And, you know, to be honest, I think it's an awesome way to also draw newer audiences in. I think, you know, my son got really excited when The Wiz was here at Fifth Avenue Theater, right? Like he got really excited because he was like, man, I watched Michael Jackson like as the Scarecrow, right? So like this whole world was opening up for him in terms of like creativity. And then we went and saw it, and he was like, yo, like that's, you know, like, oh man, and that was Diana Ross. Like, so he got to like experience, because then I was like, I'm taking you to The Wiz, so we're gonna watch The Wiz, right? Because it's like, you gotta have that context. But this is really exciting. I'm so glad that you're able to like give us some of these details about what's going on behind the scenes with this amazing show. Of course, we gotta hear it from you, you know, how folks can tap in and come and see and support. Look right there, let them know how they do.
Yeah, you can check us out on Instagram or any social media that you have, The Underground Theater. You can search The Underground Theater, put that in a Google will be your best friend. Put that in your engine, search it, look us up, buy tickets, come and see it. We're over at Base Camp Studios. That's it. It's Artist Studios. We're in the basement of their studios. We run through May 12th.
Wow.
Come and see us.
Brodrick, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Oh, wow, y'all. We're going to continue in these feel-good vibes right after this short break. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trey.
Yeah, yeah.